Our core values is trust, respect, commitment, courage, and humility.
Who really controls Nigeria? Have you ever asked yourself that? Who do you think? The president? House of Assembly? Whichever thing you believe. I promise you the reality is more shocking than you think. Apparently, a company in Asia is almost bigger than the president of Nigeria. And right now, there is nothing we can do about it. I bet you're asking yourself, what in the world is he talking about? Let me explain. You may not have heard about them, but chances are they're already in your kitchen. From your favorite instant noodles to your toothpaste. Their name? Tolaram.
Here and from here, it was a platform for an international expansion into places like America, Europe, Asia, and even Africa.
You see, they are the quiet giants behind some of Nigeria's most popular household brands. And now they've just made their boldest move yet. Not only are these folks behind a lot of what we eat, use, and buy, especially those iconic Indomie noodles we all know and love, but recently, they made a move that turned heads. They bought a majority stake in Guinness Nigeria. And this isn't just a case of a foreign company buying a few shares and calling it a day. No, this is about power, presence, and a very strategic long-term play. What Tolaram is doing is something called foreign direct investment. It's when a company doesn't just sell its products to a country. They come in, build factories, set up shop, and become a real part of the economy. In a place like Nigeria, where there's so much potential but not always the resources to unlock it, this kind of investment can feel like a game changer. But there's a twist. What happens when that investment turns into dominance? When one company starts to own not just popular brands, but entire industries. That's the story we are diving into. How Tolaram went from shipping noodles to becoming one of the biggest players in Nigeria's economy. And why that's likely just the beginning. And what this means for our beloved country. But first, who really is Tolaram? Where did they come from? Let's rewind a bit. Tolaram didn't start out as the business giant it is today. Back in 1948, it was just a humble little textile shop in Malang, Indonesia. Nothing fancy, just fabrics and family hustle. Now fast forward to 1975, and the company had big dreams. They packed up and moved their headquarters to Singapore, where they started branching out into all kinds of industries, consumer goods, manufacturing, even infrastructure. Basically, they were done playing small. Today, Tolaram is a full-blown global powerhouse. They've got operations all over the place. Asia, Africa, Europe, you name it. They employ over 20,000 people and serve more than 1 billion consumers around the world. Yes, billion with a B. And Nigeria, it's not just a market for them anymore. It's a core part of their empire. So, how did they start setting their sights on Nigeria? And why? Tolaram's Nigerian story started with something simple but genius. Noodles. In 1988, they began exporting Indomie instant noodles to Nigeria, probably not knowing they were about to spark a national obsession. But then, their consistency paid off. By 1995, they weren't just importing noodles anymore. They were making them right here in Nigeria. And that changed everything. Before you knew it, they started setting up local factories to help them cut costs, reach more people, and cement Indomie as the go-to meal in homes, schools, offices, you name it. Today, they practically own the instant noodle market. As you can see, this is already sounding like a success story. But not for Tolaram. You see, they didn't stop at noodles. Because hey, why should they? Once they saw how well things were going, they started teaming up with some of the biggest global brands to expand their reach. Kind of a wise business move if you think about it objectively. Nothing personal. So, in 2015, they partnered with Kellogg's to bring in cereals and snacks. Again, they didn't stop there. Then came Arla Foods for dairy, and Colgate Palmolive for toothpaste and other oral care products. Bit by bit, Tolaram went from being the noodle company to a major player in Nigeria's entire consumer goods scene, and they're still growing. To the untrained eye, this was just a humble business that grew big and started expanding. But what was really happening was that Toleram was gaining a hold on Nigeria, a strong footing in our markets, like nothing we've ever seen. And by the time people started catching on, it was already too late. They had a strong grip on Nigeria, and they knew it. But once again, they moved to tighten the grip. Just like that, they set their sights on even bigger targets, and they didn't come to play. In October 2024, Toleram made headlines when its subsidiary, N7 Nigeria, pulled off a game-changing deal. They bought a 58.02% stake in Guinness Nigeria from global drinks giant Diageo for a jaw-dropping 103.7 billion naira. That's not pocket change. That's we're serious about staying money.
Which allows it to select the most appropriate structure and route to market for Guinness based on local conditions while retaining ownership of the iconic Guinness brand.
But yet again, they didn't stop there. Nigerian law says that when you buy a majority stake like that, you're required to offer the rest of the shareholders a chance to sell too. So, Toleram went ahead and launched a 39.3 billion naira mandatory takeover bid to buy up another 21.98% of the shares. If that bid goes through, they'll control up to 80% of one of Nigeria's oldest and most beloved breweries. So, what do you think? Is this just a plain old business investment, or is it complete dominance? Now, after so many years, people are realizing what Toleram is doing. And sadly, all we can do is talk and make awareness. But as everyone else is talking, Toleram is low-key doing something even more bold, and that's building Nigeria's first privately owned free trade zone, complete with a state-of-the-art deep-sea port in Lekki, Lagos. Make no mistake, it's infrastructure on a national scale. Lekki Port is expected to be a major economic engine for Nigeria, easing congestion at existing ports, creating thousands of jobs, and improving trade flows across West Africa. The project operates under a 45-year concession, meaning Toleram will manage and benefit from it for decades. Not only are they selling to Nigerians, they are building the roads, ports, and systems that bring the products in. They are not just investing in Nigeria's economy, they are helping shape it. They are playing the long game and they are winning it. At this point, it's not far-fetched to say that they basically own the Nigerian markets. Now, on the surface, this looks like a huge positive for Nigeria. After all, we need investment badly. The country has so much potential but struggles with things like poor infrastructure, underdeveloped industries, and limited support for local businesses. When a company like Toleram shows up with billions of naira, creates jobs, builds ports, and makes products that are accessible and affordable, it feels like a breath of fresh air. But here's where we need to pause for a second. As great as this all sounds, there's a real concern when one company starts having this much control. Toleram isn't just competing, they're dominating. And when a foreign company holds this kind of influence across multiple industries, it can become a bit risky. Local businesses trying to break into these sectors don't stand much of a chance. You can't really go toe-to-toe with a global powerhouse that already owns the factories, the supply chains, and the distribution networks. Even more, there's a question of control. When essential parts of the economy, like food, hygiene products, and even our ports, are mostly managed by a foreign player, what happens if their priorities change? What if something goes wrong in the global market and they decide to pull back? That could leave us in a pretty tough spot. Let's not forget the influence that kind of power brings. If Toleram becomes too important to the economy, it might get harder for the government to regulate fairly. Policies might start to bend to keep them happy. And that's not always good news for smaller players or for consumers. So what can Nigeria actually do to make sure Toleram's dominance doesn't become a problem down the line? It's not about pushing them out. We need the investment. And honestly, they've done a lot of good. But it is about making sure that the playing field stays fair, open, and balanced. And that starts with stronger regulations and smarter policies. First, The Nigerian government needs to put tighter frameworks in place, policies that encourage competition, protect local businesses, and prevent monopolies from creeping in. Toleram is one of many investors, but they shouldn't be allowed to own entire sectors unchecked. We are talking proper antitrust laws, transparency in acquisitions, and incentives for homegrown businesses to scale and compete. Second, this is where free trade zones come in. And they are actually one of the smartest tools we've got right now. Free trade zones like the one in Lekki are designed to attract investment, reduce red tape, and make it easier for both foreign and local companies to operate. And if done right, they can help level the playing field. The idea is simple: offer tax breaks, good infrastructure, and business-friendly policies to encourage more companies, Nigerian startups and foreign investors to set up shop, create jobs, and export products. The more players in the game, the less control any one company has. But naturally, there's a flip side. Nigerians themselves need to start seeing free trade zones as more than just that thing for big companies. These zones are open for local entrepreneurs too. If we can get more Nigerians investing, partnering, and building inside these areas, we're not just depending on foreign giants, we're building our own. Imagine more Nigerian-owned manufacturing plants popping up in Lekki, more logistics firms, tech hubs, packaging businesses, and agro-processing companies, all growing in a space where they have access to better roads, better power, and smoother regulations. That's how you build resilience into the economy. That's how you make sure Toleram isn't the only name in the conversation. So yes, Toleram is dominating, but that doesn't have to be a threat. It can be a wake-up call. Nigeria can use this moment to tighten its rules, empower local businesses, and attract even more smart investors into the free trade zones. The goal isn't to stop companies like Toleram. It's to make sure they are part of a bigger, healthier, and more diverse economy where everyone has a shot at success. Let them build, but let's build too. If you're interested in getting started, give us a call.